will join us. My name is, as you said, Syriac Lucille Manyanga. I am from Congo origin, and I work in Brussels as marketing collaborator. This is commercial, but my activity is a philanthropist, a geopolitician, and political activist. Today, I'm happy to appointed as speaker of this conference and on the idea of economic development of the DRC. For those who will remain awake at the end of my speech, I hope that they will understand the enormous potential that engulfs this country, characterized by eminent geopoliticians and economists as a locomotive for the world's growth in the second half of this country. To begin, I take this opportunity to wish you all a prosperous and healthy 2024 years. The so-called civilized world, international community, baptized Western partners, these descriptions, security, happiness, justice, and prosperity, only apply to a small portion of humanity. This is what the so-called civilized world say. Thus, by consulting reading Western mainstream media, one might be left with a creepy impression that human suffering is appropriate, visible, and real only in a certain geographical horizons. This is a postulate. Neutral observers absorb profoundly mainstream media excesses, distortion of realities, desecration of social norms and religions, to extent that people develop unconscious cognitive software that confines the absence of human rights, hybrid wars, poverty, flawed democracy of Southern Hemisphere countries as a normal standard of brown people unable to rule themselves. This is what they say, they used to say. Whenever natural man-conducted catastrophes wrecks their geographical lands, nobody cares. Yet, every turbulence in Ukraine, Middle East, Nagorno-Karabakh, Armenia, Yemen, Taiwan are amplified as pinnacle of human sufferings. It is the proselytism of Western mainstream media that has this unfortunate tendency to prioritize misfortune in the world. Where should this lead a rational investor? It's a question everyone could ask. First, the mastery of the mainstream information is essential, especially in the field of economic investment. The financial implication being considerable, potential investors often miss out opportunity of huge gains in terms of returns because they rely on mainstream biases. Secondly, we will try to present the news of Democratic Republic of Congo and explain the methodology concocted with my team. For various reasons, some of you are familiar with the Democratic Republic of Congo. However, how many of you have knowledge that one of the most brutal genocide takes place in the apathy and complicity of a human community? Let's be factual. In the eastern provinces of the great country, the Congo, more than 15 million of my compatriots have been murdered. You have heard, 15 million. And plus, and it continues today. These crime spree are unfortunately ongoing. The population displaced, driven from their village, whilst pursued by a Rwandan army, accompanied and assisted in the forfeitures by paramilitary composed mainly of Rwanda and Uganda nationals. Whenever this population settles under suburban conditions around urban cities, women, infants, daughters, mothers, grandmothers are systematically raped, contaminated with pathology, sometimes captured as a serve sex machines, often sometimes used as slaves, and sometimes loaded with machetes. It happens today. Yet in this hell, for many, multinationals are set up, extract and plunder the immense mineral resources of Congo. This is the ultimate tragedy of this century. On the one hand, a people scorned by slaughtered humanity while others amass hundreds of billions. United States inspectors on the ground univocally condemn borders countries such as Uganda, Rwanda, major Western powers such as the United States, Canada, Belgium, the United Kingdom, France, and supernatural organizations such as the UN and the European Union. In this list, some of my compatriots are accomplices because they earn money. These serious denunciations stem from the multiple investigations conducted on the ground by the inspectors of these multilateral institutions. For those who follow closely the genocide of Congo, the mapping report denounces, establishes the lists of 8585 multinationals directly responsible. How many of you have heard this information? Of course, those unaware of these tragic facts will try to explain the contour of this report. Let's say we have in this crisis sponsors. Sponsors are companies that prey on the mineral, financial resources, and paramilitary people. Second, we have implementers. We have countries bordering the DRC, including Rwanda and Uganda. And then we have institutional accomplices. Here we have the United Nations, the African Union, and its appendices, the European Union, etc. Are these facts often ignored likely to encourage investment? Of course not. The reason is simple. We are humanly disgusted, viscerally compassionate, and in solidarity with all mattered inhabitants. If you have listened to the mainstream media recount and distort DRC turbulences, they will avoid qualifications such as genocide. It is more than likely that any common investor rational would have dissuaded him from risking his kopeck in this country. On the other hand, my speech today is imbued with a rationality that seeks to convince and direct the financial flows of investors towards a market with great growth in the next 2 decades. In the depths of humanity, we know that prosperity and freedom, whether individual or collective, are directly interdependent pair throughout history and acquired through spirit of self-denial, intelligence, creativity, and tenacity. This speech might seem strange, but it is really not. The 21st century is revolutionary. The stereotypes and mechanisms of domination imposed on the third world are fading step by step. At the same time, the social engineering structure on a cognitive dissonance of the mass on the world realities has been countered, marginalized by social networks which push people to other reliable sources of information, whether economic, social, or political. The world wants a shift from a strict Western unipolarity rules to the famous ZS, the mood of time, to apply fully. All future relations between nations, whether bilateral, multilateral, in business, in diplomacy cannot be conceived without a strict egalitarian, equitable, and respectable partnership. All attempts to impose the laws of powerful according to their selfish interests is over. It is realistic nowadays to gather concept on how to build a new society. Are you still with me? Yes. Great. Today's topic offers me an opportunity and honor to address on structural adjustment for 21st century resilience, transforming the DRC economy, addressing the unique opportunity challenges facing the Democratic Republic of Congo in the 21st century. To make it simple, it is how to build a wrecked country with new ideas. Great. First, Western economy theorists of recent centuries have three major economic doctrines: capitalism, collectivism, or one in between. And this mixture has dominated the world, and somewhat today they are obsolete. Throughout history, economists have observed that these theories are adapted to specific geographical areas because they respond to local realities. The universalism of economic theories does not apply simply everywhere. What does it mean? Nevertheless, let's take some theses of these doctrines, acclimatize them to our cultural and social environment, and insert them in the new international geopolitics. We believe that economic liberalism is the keystone of any development. We've seen it here. However, the passive role of the state, limited to monitoring the proper functioning of the market, is not enough. The executive branch must build new industry for the extraction of raw materials and distribute them to the local processing companies. In this current context of crisis and generalized state of poverty of Africa, it is no longer possible to curl up within our borders and confine as a passive exporter of raw materials that have a small and significant surplus value. So we should open ourselves. Even in Western economic liberalism, as their own history demonstrates, the entrepreneurial state is not doomed to bankrupt corporations. They protect them. In this period of global political economic restructuring of the DRC, DRC is endowed with a quantity of various materials of strategic importance, but cloaked on its subsoil, that will have no problem of profitability. There are other advantages with the improved and renovated Inga Dam. I hope you have already heard about Inga Dam on the Congo River. There is a dam, the most powerful dam in Africa. So with the improved and renovated Inga Dam, its cost to end user is estimated as the lowest in the world. With the combination of raw materials and overabundant energy, predicting substantial financial profitability is easy. Are you still with me? Great, thank you. So according to the government energy sources, DR Congo has estimated photovoltaic potential of 70,000 megawatts by its natural exposure under the sun in Equator. And as for the response to the energy deficit, the country has a significant energy potential of about 37% of the African potential, 6% of the world potential. and is able to provide more than 100,000 megawatts with Inga hydroelectric. Moreover, during the construction of the Inga Dam, former President Mobutu, I hope you heard about him, Mobutu, he planned to create a free zone and install heavy energy consuming industry. Thus, the DRC can become a leading exporter of processed products at the lowest cost of production in the world. This idea is still actual and should remain for the future. Another point is diplomacy. Diplomacy needs scrutiny in DRC. In order to implement a steep redirection of its foreign policy, DRC needs to redesign an analysis model, including all military destabilization factors, government imposed by external powers, international conventions concluded to the great disadvantage of Africa. It's highly important to recognize that Congolese executives' handling of diplomacy is total chaos. And believe me, it's an effort. Whilst our population faces genocide, our nation should have long ago tightened rank with new allies, defend common interests, standardize our demands, pool some of our strategic resources in order to weigh on the world trade. International diplomacy has nothing to envy to hungry lions, because what counts is interest. As for that, Congo has to find themselves way out of the quagmire. What can they do then? In a dream, let's dream. Congolese executives could try to harmonize their diplomacy in solidarity with African nations in international negotiations, and why not to streamline regional exchanges, regional economic exchanges, in order to initiate positive growth. Unfortunately, as I just said, all continental and regional multinational organizations created in Africa depend on external finances for its operations. Therefore, they are controlled and work for foreign interests to the detriment of those on the continent. You have heard the African Union, you know that? The Economic Community of Central African States, the ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West Africa, Southern African Development, and there are much more. They are strictly useless, noisy shell, and harmful. They operate for the benefit of the sponsors of the genocide. Because I said 85 companies are international companies in the Congo, looted. In short, in my humble opinion, the future adjournment of Congo's diplomacy depends on its military security services through reorganization and professionalization. In order to do so, all foreign soldiers, because the foreign soldiers, many of them are there, non-commissioned officers issued from the diverse paramilitary groups must be dismissed without compensation and expelled from the country. So like everywhere else, the army is the emanation of citizens constituting their country. These reorganizations involve the creation of schools, Institute of Strategic Studies, the implementation of compulsory military service, an efficient promotion program within the military hierarchy. This reorganization is highly motivated personnel to protect the eastern provinces of Congo of the Republic. Should be implemented at the same time as a redesign of geographical system, leading to the creation of a specific military district These few analysis tools can be sufficient to overcome years of inefficiencies, but we can continue to explore tailored strategy for structural adjustment, inclusive development, and harnessing technology to fortify democracy. So as a result, third world countries will regain political autonomy and full control of their natural resources and being able to envisage real development of the country if they organize themselves. The DRC is a vast territory of 2,345,410 square kilometers, 80 million hectares of arable land, useful for the development of a large agricultural project, a workforce of 50 to 60 million young people, an ecosystem with the forests, massive of about 155.5 million hectares, which also serves as a protector of the ozone layer. This represents 10% of the world's tropical forests and more than 60% of the forests of the Congo Basin, because the Congo Basin has many countries around. So let us not forget the importance reserves of peatlands of more than 30 gigatons of carbon dioxide. In addition to these assets, we mentioned that the Congo's subsoil turns out to be a geological scandal. It goes without saying that the Democratic Republic of Congo will be part of the nations, if well managed, that will grow and serve as an engine to global growth. You can see it already today. To be part of a dynamic and sustainable economic growth, Congolese executive should concentrate its development strategy within a high development council. The main mission of this office will be to act as a catalyst and controllers of ideas, concepts that will serve as the basis for economic and industrial growth. In addition, this office attributes your concern and oversight on international macroeconomic paradigms evolution, the major challenges facing humanity, such as the pandemic of Ebola, HIV, malaria, COVID-19, climate change, energy transition, biodiversity, major academic hubs, scientific evolution. So it joins what you're doing. So this higher development council shall also gather information, offer concrete solutions to the state, three branches, executive, legislative, and judiciary, to implement efficiently these measures in various appropriate sectors. As everywhere else, the foundation of any future economic growth should rely on elite education based on secular historical knowledge of our country and the continent. DRC current President Felix Tshisekedi Chilombo, we call him, has promulgated free education. Everybody go to school. It is a short plea to forwards. Unfortunately, it's insufficient. The reform did not anticipate building new schools, infrastructure, funding advanced training teachers, and increasing their salaries, eradicating corruption environment, and last but not least, the president never laid out a national comprehensive. In short, there is no clear, coherent strategy on the way to ensure the excellence becomes sustainable in the school environment. It is essential to correct the aforementioned deficiencies. Now let's start boosting the field of mathematics engineering, chemistry, physics, nuclear science, robotics, Polytechnic Institute, and highlighting geology studies based mainly on Congolese raw materials, computer science, biotechnology, economic and financial sciences, artificial intelligence, and phytomedicine and virology. In my opinion, these poles of excellence, our Silicon Valleys, are the highway to the elite knowledge. This will enable Congo to rely on this very high level and skilled citizens to achieve autonomy in strategic sectors such as food, dissuasive military, and total energy security. Are you still there? Great. Another topic to be addressed for the sustained development of the DRC is mobilize capital for productive investment. So we'll be able to analyze two aspects of fundraising. First, it seems essential that we create a stock exchange around the country's natural resources to attract potential investors as shareholders of strategic processing industry, of which the Congolese state should uphold majority shares. Of course, private investors of foreign origin shall also be channeled into high added value productive sector, because Congolese economic policy should benefit national low-income citizens through contract financial incentives. Now let us talk about our future stock exchange. Its main attributes are to finance major national projects, check the solvency of fund applicants, when the recipients of funds are private, and manage the stock market. Moreover, the stock exchange can develop a bond market that will allow states, provinces, municipalities, Congolese companies to borrow capital by issuing debt bond repayable over the long term, beyond 12 months. To render this stock exchange flexible and efficient, it should be formed as a commercial company with majority public participation associated with Congolese banks. Let us be explicit. Let's say 51% of the share belong to the state, 25% for local banks, 15% for Congolese diaspora, and 5% for local Congolese, and 4% for non-Congolese investors. However, a functional and efficient stock exchange absolutely needs a state executive capital of controlling national inflation and social instabilities, reduce the volatility of exchange rate, and put a final halt to the hybrid war throughout the territory. If this economic and social stability is not achieved, then our above plan will be nothing more than wishful dreams. International investors avoid long-term investment in those countries like us, because long-lasting inflation deteriorates the value of the money invested. They are right. So we have just reviewed the opportunity to attract capital through the creation of stock exchange. In order for the latter to be beneficial and efficient, it is necessary to stabilize socially and secure the country from foreign interferences. What strategy does local executive need to theorize to bring about this ideal society? The question. First, it will be very important to promote a societal space where truly fair justice reigns over the workspace. Institutional banditry, nepotism, corruption must be fought by appropriate legislative reforms. by strengthening current constitution. At the same time, we must ensure that professional judges are secure, apolitical, and receive remuneration that protects them from corruption. The country is obliged to restore a conventional deterrent force to prevent the country border being of the Congo from embarking on a new destabilization of the country. Congolese multipolar diplomacy must evolve. This is to say, maintain a reassessed contact with our historical partners. Leonine contracts will be reviewed by a battery of appropriate legal measures. As for contractors legally installed in the country, they will be able to go about their business in peace. There will be no witch hunt. So we stressed the openness to the new economy opportunities. It will be up to those who want to invest in the Congo to follow the laws of the country to the letter and enjoy all the benefits. The Congo of tomorrow must be built on democratic values, with a liberal economy, with a strong presence of the state, open to the world, with a deterrent conventional force, and free people, educated, determined to take advantage of its wealth and its choices, without a third party exogenous influencing the determination of its future. It must be emphasized, even insist, without the aforementioned fundamentals, our proposals for the development of Congo, vector of economic growth in the Africa and the world, will be wishful thinking. Are you still there?
Yes.
Great. So inclusive development. By inclusive development, it's a very interesting subject. I mean, it's equal opportunities for men and women in the labor market. This might astonish people in assistance to learn that Congo, being a conservative Christian country, had already in the 1960s, but put women in its central government as ministers. At the time in sub-Saharan countries, African countries, it was very rare to see women leading the country. So the country always promoted women, and frankly, this trend should continue and amplify. Nowadays, single mothers have so much burden raising solely children, most often without alimony and social benefits. This has to be scrutinized and tried to obtain from local legislators a public law that shall enable employees or employers to prioritize hiring the social professional niche. There is a lot of people stranded, outcasted for various reasons from the work market. So it's an overall problem. Since I cannot rely on official figures released by the government, I can only mention by observation that unemployment is largely above 85% in urban areas and around 90% in rural areas. There's no industry. So having emphasized this situation as catastrophic, it might seem with strong political will, we can help every single social professional categories. Of course, the priority shall always and should be give a help hand to women. By this postulate, the DRC is a geological scandal, observers referring to the richness of its raw material by inadvertently forgetting its contribution to the climate balance of the world. climate change expert advocate for successive government in Kinshasa to safeguard and maintain status quo. The Western world is in the head of locomotive that aspires to limit the harmful effect of climate change. In an effort to address serious and rising issue of climate change, they spearheaded 194 countries in 2015 to join the Paris Accord. This agreement dictates that all countries reduce their CO2 emission and adapt to the consequences of ecological changes. The DRC has a moral obligation to make an active contribution to this climate struggle. Nevertheless, one news lies in the fact that a balance is needed between industrial development and active participation to the domain, but we need also specialists, because I am not a specialist in climate change. I will quote a source from internet, that is Resource Policy Volume 83, from June 2023, file 103746. She talks of the complexity of carbon emissions. So, talking about foster international collaboration and trade partnership for economic growth. At this stage of my speech, largely accentuated by a theoretical vision of development and private investors, how can we foster international cooperation for economic growth? What is important is to ensure that all elements are in place to demonstrate that commitment of public partners for fair result for users, investors, taxpayers, which in many countries begin with institutional reforms that increase the responsibility of all actors. The other option is the need to find the right balance between public and private participation to increase the discussion of the cost-benefit approach. Our partners shall always consider the monetary and tax effectiveness of their investment through quantifiable ratio in terms of progress and return on investment. I consider this request as fundamental for both parties. Therefore, our next speech will analyze more substances, the tax burden, which financial partners can cope and strive with their business. You clearly notice that at the end of my speech, it does not highlight the most important factor of many projects, the human factor, the workers. You might agree in our Congo, the social situation is not properly considered. We're looking at the radical changing that approach. Investors will have an imperative obligation to respect the labor code, human resources, and grant them a decent gross salary indexed to inflation. The state shall also ensure that these wages do not prevent development and that companies remain competitive in the world market in relation with their cost price. In conclusion, on behalf of my team, who helped me prepare this conference, through their expertise and hard work, we tried to highlight the parameters of works, collaboration with the world to generate sustainable development. I express my gratitude to those who have made this forum a success, and especially it comes straight from my heart and for your hospitality. We'll finish full of enthusiasm, and I hope that our messages expressed briefly during this conference will resonate for a long time in your subconsciousness, and that the blessed day will come again and move from the theory to practice. And I'm here largely convinced that my time here is the beginning of a great collaboration. I thank you very much for your attention. I hope that I've got some questions and discussion we can make.
So thank you very much for this very interesting talk. So from the audience online, are there any questions? Yeah, but this microphone is. So any questions from the audience? Maybe someone here has a question in the room.
What's the role related to religion in the economy? Is it closely linked to the church, and is there something you can tell about?
Yeah, great. Thank you for this question. The relation between economy and religions in the Congo, I mean, or in Africa. It's a very good question. Apparently, there seem to be two different sectors, but one conducts and obeys to the other. In Congo today, there are many churches. We have the traditional churches and we have what they call the new churches, but they don't have on economical terms. They remain spirituals, but what is positive for them is that they, mainly the traditional religions, organize education. They've got schools, but after schools, they don't have industry. So there's a problem. They could educate people, but they don't send them to work. And authorities on economical terms do not oblige them to give works to their faithful members. Thus, it seemed to us that these are two different sectors which are not turned one to the other. So what we advise them from time to time is to say, come on, you try to train people on general knowledge, but you should train them on specific profitable training that could give them jobs so that they could earn money. Otherwise, we're all getting poor and poorer because we are sitting there praying. So this is a really serious problem we have there for the time being. It's very serious, social.
I also have a question. So you described how Congo needs to act to become the country it wants to be. And I was wondering, what is the role of the neighboring countries? Do you see an important role there for collaborations or?
Yes, talked about somewhere. We don't want to be curling up on ourselves. We want the neighboring countries to harmonize diplomacy and cooperation, but we don't want them to be war fighters. So we need to, that's why I said on diplomacy, we need to reorganize diplomacy towards some countries, neighboring or not, who can help Congo to stabilize itself. For the time being, it's not the case, because all the regional organizations do not protect the Congo. since 30 years, the genocide began, 1996, that the war started, up to now in the eastern provinces, killing people. And they're killing them from the army coming from neighboring countries, Uganda, Rwanda, and they are supported by international multinationals. Because when they get in the Congo, they get minerals, they sell them for cheap to the multinationals. The multinationals do not pay taxes to the owners of this. And if you go to the East provinces, you will see that people are sitting on minerals. They're producing minerals, but they're poor. There's no schools, there's no industry, but they produce cobalt, lithium, coltan, but they're poor. And this is the reason why the death rate is very high. So neighboring countries are important for us, but we should reorganize this for diplomacy. As I said, between countries, what matters is interest. Whatever is beautiful or what ugly or no, it's interest. They earn money, they earn interest, then we collaborate. It's a serious problem. Thank you very much for your question.
Also like a question. Oh, it's another question.
Yeah, there's also one in the chat, so maybe
A chat,
we
huh?
can do it
Oh,
here.
yes, yes, yes.
Anna says, thank you for this great presentation. Do you think that international organizations such as the UN or the World Bank can actually make a positive change towards stabilization and sustainable development in the DRC?
Well, to my experience, we have seen since 25 years, the UN forces are on ground. They came with a mandate from the UN Security Council to protect the civilians in the warrior zones. But up to now, there is still displaced people, war continues. I think the World Bank is working on the basis of financial interests. They just give, when they give loans to the country, they give on a short term, but on a short term, a country so devastated like the DRC doesn't help. When you say you give a loan for 5 years, what should they build? A road? Should they build a bridge? Should they build businesses? And then after 5 years, the World Bank comes back and say, okay, you pay back our money and you pay back the interest on the money. The rate is always very high because they say it's a risk country factor is applied. So the country turns on paying back loans from the World Bank and debts of the World Bank, and it's returning on a circle, like a roundabout, without any investment. So they are important, but they're not doing what they should do for the country. And I don't think in the UN there is African country represent themselves. They always on the security. The countries speak on the African's name, so it's not important. It's not efficient. It's not good thing. So they should allow African people, African countries to speak in the name of their countries. Otherwise, the African, with the change which is coming, the geopolitical change coming nowadays, the African countries will be leaving the traditional development cooperation system. So they are important. The UN is important. The World Bank is important, but the Africans are not they see now what is valuable with it, because they are in a country. In every African country, you have a UN office, you have a UN mandate, you have a UN companies. But in the Congo, they are there, but nothing has helped to give safety to people. So it's up to the observers to say, are they really important?
We have another question in the chat from Ursula, and she says, sorry. Thank you very much for your presentation. My question relates to foreign direct investment and the role of key players. For example, how would you assess the role of China and other countries in this regard?
Oh, yes, this is a very interesting question because it's actual. China is in the Congo, and foreign direct investment has always been applied in the Congo since years. And we are facing this around number of mechanisms which is not really clear. When they say direct investment, do they use it by the government procedures? And with the risk country, when they say the government is very corrupt, so everybody say, well, if we bring direct investment in the country, I don't have, I will not gain my my interest back, and then the country, the targeted people, like it happens in a number of areas, will not see the benefit of it. So this is a huge problem to solve today in the Congo. And as I said, we should create the Council for Development. There is no independent council that could advise the government to do that. The government deals with the investors directly, and with corruption and other problems, the investors are resilient, so they don't go on. As far for China, China is important for Congo, and today it owns the 60% of cobalt processing in Congo. Why? Because the first investors, I mean, the first donors in economy, I mean, the traditional partner in mining, that was United States, France, Belgium, etc., couldn't invest as much money as to help the people develop themselves. But the Chinese, when they came, even though they've made this contract, they are the ones who helped the Congo to build a number of infrastructures, such as the Congo River Bridge, was built by the Chinese. There are other investment in roads from China. And the Chinese people have an attitude of peaceful collaborations. So they try to discuss and try to give low interest on the loans. For example, if we have a difference for Western institutions, they make a loan with 8% interest, but China will give 2% interest. So it's a cheaper money than the other ones. So we think that foreign investment should be improved. I mean, the conditions of collaboration. This is diplomacy. So the Congo should do a great effort. The executive should do a great effort to harmonize this sector. And for the Chinese, I think Chinese has a great advance on in Africa, in the continent, and in Congo than the other partners today, because they invest in development. Right?
I also had a question. Could you maybe elaborate a bit on the role of climate change on the economy?
Yes, this is very interesting subject because if Congo harmonize climate change with economy, they could go into transitional energy sectors. And this will help the Congo install industry and science and technology to protect the environment, and they create jobs. And if they create jobs, the money that will invest will create a plus value that will help the protection of environment and help people to grow their economy. Because today, when you go to Congo, ask people to protect the forest, they will ask you, hey, and then where do we find the energy? Because they refer to forest to get woods to make food, for example. It is important because in the Congo, we've got a huge areas that protects that avoid the country to the planet to be much more warm. So these should be protected. But if we don't protect them, don't protect the forests, don't protect these carbon dioxide reductions. How do people do that? Because there's one side, the growth of the population. Today we are 120 million, but in 30 we will have 200 million people. And these people should eat. They should have habitat. They should live. They should get medical treatment. And frankly, to tell you, all these needs are satisfied in environment. So it's crucial today that in Congo, the international community or multinational organizations introduce how to give a value to the environment protection. Even the fight for species, the species which are disappearing, some biological human beings are despairing. Some water, some rivers are drying because of. To give you illustration, when you are in the south, this is the Katanga, where they're producing minerals. And to get gold or cobalt, they use some other chemicals to treat this. And these chemicals go to the rivers or in the nature, they remain in the nature. So they kill the nature, the environment, and then they kill people because those people live on the nature. So this is really a topic that requires weeks or months of forums to treat and find solutions. Because if the Congo loses its forests, its water, then we've got the Sahara deserts that comes to Congo. And if the Sahara deserts go down to the Congo, so the world heat, the temperature of the world will rise. Because in the south of Africa, we've got the Namibia desert. So the Congo is in between two deserts. Meanwhile, the Congo is the one who absorbs the world dioxide carbons, CO2. So it's agent for the world, it's agent for human being, it's agent for all of us to find solutions to this problem. In England, there is a Professor David, I suppose that he gave a conference At the conclusion of his conference on changes, environment protection, he said, today we cannot be afraid because we have solutions. Technology and science has solutions. But it's up to the political executives to apply this wherever they need it. But in universities, they have solutions. They could solve this. So the question is crucial. It's very important. But if you see what's happening, the catastrophes that happens in the Congo, there were, even in Kinshasa, the capital city, sometimes the inundation that comes and loots everything, invades everything, kills all the houses and people and animals when with heavy rains. Because climate change is there, is applied. So it's not, I have no solution. It's everybody's problem, the world's problem, and we should address it and solve it. Otherwise, well, we could accept the consequences of our behavior. So this is the, can give you the a solution. There's no solution. Everybody needs a solution to give their solution. You are in universities, so it's a place where there are solutions.
Thank you.
Great. It's a very interesting question.
I see there are no more questions in the chat. For everyone online, I would like to say I just sent a link. This is needed for our evaluation for our UFA program, so the Young Universities of Europe. Please have a look at it and fill it in. And if there are no more questions, then I would like to thank everyone for joining, but especially to thank Cyriac for his nice presentation.
You're welcome.
And hope to see you again for another workshop. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.